The movie opens in a dystopian wasteland sometime in the future. There is a sign saying 57 people have already died on this road. Two cops argue about who should drive while they get a message about a cop killer. They end up chasing a crazy couple in a black car. One of the police cars ends up in a spin, almost breaking the car, but the other is still giving chase. The Knight Rider and his wife are still running, while Max waits for them. In a nearby diner, Goose is having breakfast when the Knight Rider car speeds by, so they all run out to chase it. Goose takes off after it on his bike. Further down the road, a baby wanders onto the street, but they manage to miss it, but not without the cop car flipping over, and the rest crashing out, including Goose. Goose calls Max to tell him what's going on, so he turns on his car and waits for the Knight Riders, who mention that their gang, the Toe Cutters, are unstoppable. But then they see Max in front of them. They drive straight on and think they have escaped. But when they see him coming back at them, the Knight Rider knows it is over. Soon after, they end up hitting crashed cars and blowing up. That night, Max looks on as his wife Jessie plays the saxophone. Then they relax together while they watch TV. And the next morning, Max makes breakfast as Jessie worries about her husband and his work. He gets her coffee and tries to cheer her up with a mask, but she's not having it. On his way out, she manages to tell him that she loves him, and that made Max smile. Max gets to the Hall of Justice, or the MFP office. Goose rides in on his bike with a broken leg, and in the garage, they see this turbocharged car, and Max can't get his eyes off of it. The mechanic is a genius for putting it together with just bits from other cars. The police get called to a crash. When Captain Fifi got there, it was already over. He talks to Max about the Knight Rider and how his gang are now after him, but Max doesn't seem to mind that much. The gang gather at a rundown town. Their leader, the Toe Cutter, is there with them as they get off their bikes acting weird. They intimidate a man into telling them where to find the train controller agent. He takes them there, and that's when they find out that the Knight Rider is actually dead. The Toe Cutter scares the man into giving him his hat before the gang takes him away. Back on the street, the gangs are having their own twisted fun, and a couple sees them and decide to escape before getting caught. But Toe Cutter sees them and gets the gang to chase them down. They catch up pretty quickly and run them down the road, but they don't stop there. They trash the car with the couple still inside. Max and Goose have stopped a bike with a sidecar when they get a call about a bike gang causing trouble. They let the bike go and take off on the road. They find one of the couples running into the field, but they keep going and get to the wreck. They get out of the car with their guns and untie a man that was on the ground, but he is acting crazy. Goose tries to free the woman, but she crawls away scared as he tries talking to her and carries her to the car. The crazy man, Johnny, is screaming about the Knight Rider, and that puts a nervous thought in Max's head. Goose has Johnny in the office when outside. The mangled car is being watched by one of the gang members. Max and Fifi climb out the car and go inside with some lawyers to release Johnny. This pisses off Goose because they know he's guilty.
Jesus Christ, you're not going to let him walk out the door, Fifi.
But no one is going to talk, so the lawyers say it's no contest, and they have to let him go. Goose gets so mad that they had to keep away from Johnny, but he gets away to try and stop the lawyers from letting Johnny go. It spills over to the outside as Goose starts beating him up before they get separated. As Johnny walks away, he tells them this is all about the Knight Rider. At the beach, some gang members fight over a mannequin woman, but this upsets Toe Cutter, and he makes the guys shoot it. But even that doesn't make him happy, so he drags Johnny into the water and threatens him with a gun. At a high-class club, Goose is enjoying himself when someone tampers with his bike outside. Goose is very intrigued by the singer, and she seems into him too, and they end up waking up together. When Goose gets on his bike without checking it and rides off, but he doesn't notice Johnny waiting for him. Goose gets on the open road, and as he was riding his bike fast, he suddenly loses control and flies off into the grass. But he's still alive, thanks to his helmet. His radio was broken, so he had to walk down the street. To get a truck for his bike, he speeds off with the truck, but as he sings while driving, he's not alone. He gets ambushed by the Toe Cutters. They run over to his flipped truck, and when the Toe Cutter notices the leaking fuel, he makes Johnny light up a match and throw it towards the car, burning Goose with it. Max rushes to the hospital and runs to the room. Looking at Goose in the bed, he sees the damage they did to his partner and friend. When he walks out, all he wants is revenge. That night at home, Max can't sleep thinking about Goose, and in the morning, Jessie finds him sitting outside on the beach. He is very sad about losing his friend, as he cries in her arms. Max makes it to Fifi's house to hand him his resignation letter because he can't deal with the job anymore. Fifi tries to convince him to stay, saying he's a hero, and the world needs heroes, but Max laughs it off and tells Fifi he's scared of becoming crazy like the gangsters, and he walks back home, but Fifi still thinks he'll come back. Max drives with his family on a peaceful trip, even managing to get a dog. They get to a pond and have a nice picnic. Max and Jesse are holding each other as he tells her about his life. Later, when they get to a scrapyard and get the mechanic to fix their tire, Jessie wants to go to get ice cream for her son, so the mechanic tells her about a place just down the street, so she drives off, leaving Max with the tire. When she gets to the beach, she gets spotted by the gangs who want a piece of her. She gets the ice cream, but gets hounded by the gang pretty quickly. Toe Cutter tries to stop her from getting in her car, but she hits him and gets in and drives off. She gets to the scrapyard and screams at Max to get in the car because they have no time leaving the tire there. But soon after, the gang gets there to ask the mechanic about Max and Jesse, and he tells them all he knows. When they get to a secluded spot, Jesse tells him about the gang, but when Jesse goes out to check on the car, she finds a hand tied to their car. They take it to Ziggy, who takes the hand off them and sends them off, so they keep driving into the night and get to a cottage. The next morning, Jess finds Max working on the car and makes fun of him, so he terrorizes her with his messy hands. She wants to go to the beach later, but Max still has to fix the car, so she goes by herself, and as she leaves, May tells her to watch out for Benny down there. Jessie is making her way through the woods. She gets to the beach and starts swimming, but the toe cutters have followed her there without her noticing. She falls asleep on the beach, but when the dog gets up to chase some birds, she has a funny feeling and gets up too. That's when she decides to go back. And in the woods again, she's not alone. They are following her, but she still can't see them. She starts running, but they're still behind her, chasing her through the forest. They get closer and closer, but not close enough even when she falls. She keeps running, but that's when she finds her dog brutally sliced and hung on a tree. But she still keeps running, but they're getting much closer now. Jessie screams because she has run into Benny. Max hears her, so he grabs his gun. She is being chased by Benny now, as Max comes running into the forest. Jessie manages to make it out of the forest and into Max's arms. May was scolding Benny when Max tells her about some people in the woods, and he has to go and see the problem, so she takes Jessie to the house and takes care of her. In the house, Jessie then realizes no one has her son. She runs back outside to find her boy missing. She screams out, but no one answers. She is looking everywhere, but all she finds is Toe Cutter and his gang. They have her baby. She wants her baby back, but he doesn't care, and he drones on about pretty faces not needing to have a sense of humor. And to their surprise, May comes in holding a big shotgun. They try to take her gun, but she shoots it, alerting Max and Benny. May manages to get them to give back the baby, and Jessie takes it to the car, as May locks them all in the barn. Jessie and May get in the car and drive off, breaking the gate. But the door doesn't hold the gang for too long, who get on their bikes to chase Jessie and May down. And down the road, they don't make it far because the car has broken down. Jessie gets out with her son and starts running while May stands her ground shooting at them. But they just ride past her to get to Jessie and easily run her down along with her baby. Max gets there, but he's too late to save his family. He runs over to them with a shotgun in hand and a terrified look on his face. He's down on his knees as he sees what the gang have done. The ambulance takes them to the hospital, and the doctors can't manage to do anything for her or the kid. And while they talk about harvesting her organs, Max is listening behind the door. Back on the beach, all he has in his mind is revenge, so he runs back home to grab his clothes and get the turbocharged car. He drives off just to hunt the gang down. He gets to the scrapyard and drags the mechanic under the car and makes him say all the members of the gang responsible for his family's death. The gang are having some fun at some old house. They ride off on their bikes because they are planning to steal some fuel from a truck. They sneak onto the top and fill up their cans as the truck keeps driving, but they are not alone. Max is right behind them. On a small road, Max comes up behind the riders and starts knocking them down. He drives past them and comes back right at the riders, making 2 drive off a bridge and the rest crashing down. Toe Cutter was leaving the scrapyard while Max watched him riding off. He chases them as they ride past a tractor, but Max can't go around easily and loses time stuck behind. Max enters a prohibited area and spots a crashed bike beside the road. He stops to investigate, still being cautious, but it was a trap, and someone shoots him from behind. He's on the ground as they ride over to him and run over his arm. One rider comes back, but Max shoots him down. Now it's 2 left. He goes straight at the Toe Cutter, who rides off on his bike. Max limps over to his car and chases after him. They ride down the road at high speed, and Max manages to catch up as they go back and forth on the road. But the Toe Cutter doesn't see the truck and crashes right into it. Max sees this but still isn't satisfied. There's still Johnny. Max keeps driving through the night, and in the morning he finds Johnny's bike, and Johnny stealing shoes off of a dead man. That's when Max sees the fuel spilling out. He tells Johnny to cuff his ankles and drag him to the car. Johnny still tries to talk himself out of it, but Max's mind is already made up. Max sets up the burning lighter next to the fuel and gives Johnny a saw to give him a chance at escaping. Max then drives away and watches on as the car blows up behind him. Getting his revenge, Max still has no joy in his heart, but all he has is the open road, so he just keeps driving, hoping the pain will fade away. The movie opens with the world descending into chaos, with everything becoming a barren wasteland. With fuel being so little, countries ended up in war over it. No resolution could be reached and the fights became too much to handle. The gangs took over and would do anything for fuel. Max still has his car in the open road, but this time, he's being chased by some marauders. He is trying to get away as he weaves through some crashed cars, but they are still on his tail. Max is running out of fuel, so he cuts the engine so he can't drive away from them, and they catch up. But just before they shoot, he brakes and they shoot each other. He hits one car and uses it to take down the other. He has no choice, so he runs out with his can for their fuel. But there is still one man left on his bike with his slave behind him. But the fuel is more important, so he puts buckets down to fill it up. The man pulls out the arrow and heads back. But Max isn't done. He checks the truck, but only finds a small music box, which he likes. So he drives off as night falls. The next day, Max finds a small helicopter-looking thing, so he stops to investigate. He slowly walks over to it to find a snake, but it was a trap. The gyro captain is excited to get Max's fuel. The captain admires his reflexes as they walk slowly to the car, but instead of turning off the trap, Max grabs a knife. But the captain was too smart for that. But he didn't expect the dog that bites him, and that was all Max needed. And the captain quickly tells him about a place where there is lots of fuel at a refinery.
Fuel! Gasoline! Thousands of gallons of as much as you want!
So Max has to keep him alive. They drive through the desert with the captain tied up in the back. Just past a hill they find it, but it is under siege by some marauders and the people are defending it desperately with weapons. Then Max spots the leader of the marauders, Lord Humongous. Then they see the tanker where they keep the fuel. The captain asks to be freed, so Max just locks him up to a fallen tree. Max sets up a small perch and opens a can of dog food, but then eats it himself as the dog. And then Captain looks at him, so he throws some to the dog. That night, Max wakes up to see the marauders oddly driving away from the refinery. Max and Captain don't know what's going on, and the next morning, cars drive out of the refinery, and they get chased by the marauders. This is Max's chance to get to the unguarded fuel inside. He spots a car being chased around the back as it crashes. The marauders chase down the driver on foot, and she is a woman, and there is also the same biker from the road. Max drives off not to miss the chance. Max comes up behind a marauder, taking him down and freeing a man who promises him all the gas he wants. So they drive together to the refinery. A feral kid sees them and runs over unafraid. Max brings their man over to them and they make him drop his weapons. They come out and take Nathan off Max's shoulder. Max goes inside and sees all the machines they have as the medics take care of Nathan. They surround Max and ask him for information, but he just wants his gas. And he will leave. He made a deal with Nathan, and they must honor it. But Nathan didn't make it, so they can't hold the agreement to be true. They drag him to his car and tell him to drive away. But before he leaves, the marauders come back, so they need to set up defenses. Everyone gets in position to defend the refinery, and they cuff Max to a pole and they wait. They see the marauders with their cars and bikes coming up the road, but they have hostages tied in front of their cars. Then it all stops and Lord Humongous gives a speech to try and get them to stop resisting and surrender their gas and the refinery. But the feral child sneaks through a hole. A hostage tries to shout at them, but he gets knocked out. The feral child throws his boomerang and manages to hit the slave and jump back into the hole. When Humongous holds his soldier back, it turns out the back of his head is easily exposed. He gets back on the mic and tells them he can compromise. He will spare their lives if they give up everything and walk away. He gives them a day to decide and drives off with his troops. Max looks at them as they drive away. He doesn't know how to play this yet. The people argue whether to stay or leave, and Max uses this distraction to get himself out of the cuffs. And while they argue, the feral kid talks to Max, and he seems to like the music box, so Max gives it to him. Pappagallo talks to his people. He tells them to remember that this isn't just fuel, it's their lifeline to escape escape this wasteland. But they have given up. They don't believe they can fight them and win. Then Max tells them he knows how they can escape. They hold a meeting and he tells them he needs fuel to get a semi-truck that can carry their tanker across the desert, and they have nothing else to lose, so they agree. That night, they give him the fuel and he carries it off into the night as they watch on. Max slowly makes his way, but falls in a trap. He stays quiet and waits, but the man couldn't see him and gets distracted by the feral kid who saves Max and points him in the right direction. The next morning, Max makes it up the hill, and in the desert, he finds the captain dragging along a log, so Max makes him carry the heavy fuel. They find a man dead, bitten by the captain's snake. Max finds some stuff in his pocket and takes some bullets. They get to his helicopter and ride it to get to the semi-truck. Max manages to start the truck and gives Captain back his key, then drives off as the captain shouts. Max checks his gun and kicks it into gear, riding off as the captain follows. The marauders are waiting when they see the truck on its way. They get in their cars and head straight for it. But Max is ready and he keeps driving. The bikes blow one of his tires and then jump on the truck bed. He keeps driving, and that's when Humongous sees the commotion, so he gets his special gun. He aims at Max but hits the truck. Max is barreling down the road when a marauder pulls him from outside. They blow all his tires on one side and aim for the other, but Captain drops a snake on them, making them crash out. This helps Max drive into the refinery, but not without two cars sneaking in behind him. One marauder climbs on a walkway and throws a man off it. The rest want to open the gate, but Papagallo stops them with the flamethrower until he gets shot with an arrow. Max takes down one and heads for the flamethrower to drive back the marauders on the outside. The man inside is too quick and escapes. Everyone is celebrating with the captain as the feral boy plays with the helicopter. Papagallo is hurt, but tells everyone to plan their escape tonight. But they have to fix the broken parts on the truck, and they need 24 hours to fix it, so Papagallo tells them they got 12. The woman apologizes to Max, and the rest are also very happy that he is here. They even give him a bullet. He thanks them and tells them he's actually leaving. As night fell, Humongous is mad and tells them they will not escape his wrath and no one will get out alive. The marauders prepare themselves into the night and even hang some prisoners they have as Humongous gives a speech. Inside the refinery, everyone is getting ready to roll out and they are working on the truck. Captain and the beautiful woman sneak past them because he wants to escape with her, but she feels wrong for doing this because this is her family, so she's staying. Max is pumping fuel into his car to leave when Papagallo comes limping to ask him to stay and drive the truck, but they have a deal and Max doesn't need anything else from them. Papagallo offers him a future, 2,000 miles away from here. Papagallo confronts him about Max being just a scavenger, but Max just punches him. Papagallo isn't giving up because Max isn't the only one who's lost family, but he insults Max and walks off. Max puts his trap back on the car, and when he looks up, he finds the feral boy playing in the car. The kid isn't leaving, so he throws the toy and his hat. Max is about to drive out of the compound. Papagallo can't keep him because he kept the deal and he will drive the truck. Just as Max got back in his car, Captain talks to him, but he just drives away. Max takes off into the night with the marauders after him, and that upsets Humongous because he needs his soldiers. Max is still driving, and his new fuel makes him go faster, but the marauders have nitrous to boost their speed, and they quickly catch up to Max and run him off the road, and he rolls his car onto the side of the road and down a cliff. Max barely makes it out alive as they take his fuel, but the man wants Max alive. When they get there, Max is gone, so a man goes looking, and when he finds him, he shoots the dog first, but the other guy triggers the bomb, and the car explodes. So the rest leave, thinking everyone is already dead from the explosion, but Max is still alive. Back at the refinery, the captain sees the explosion. Max is dragging himself, and he is barely alive, but he's not alone. The captain manages to save him on his helicopter and takes him back to the refinery. Max wakes up on a bed with the feral boy over him. The boy has brought Max his clothes. Papagallo tells the rest he'll drive the truck. He's going to use it as a ram to give everyone a chance to escape. A hurt Max hobbles over to the meeting as they argue and offers his skill to drive the truck. But Papagallo isn't having it anymore because he's hurt. But Max is the best chance they got, so he agrees. Max loads his gun and everyone gets into their vehicles with Max in the truck. The marauders are outside waiting for them to come out. Max starts the truck and everyone waits to go. He starts driving and the feral boy jumps on at the last minute. They get shot at by Humongous, but it's bulletproof this time. So Max uses the truck as a battering ram to get through the marauders' cars as the rest follow behind, and Captain almost gets shot. The marauders get into the refinery and celebrate thinking they won the day, but it is a setup. The fuse burns out, and the whole place goes up in flames as the people ride off watching it explode. On the road, they have to defend themselves against the marauders again. Papagallo takes a couple riders with him, but there are still many following Max. They fight back with bombs, but the man hooks the door open and another hooks the defender, but the truck is too strong. The warrior woman shoots down a man but gets shot herself. Max manages to shoot a driver and crash the car. They aim for the tires again and manage to get on the truck. Max shoots some of them, but there is still more. The feral boy helps with the fight as Papagallo asks him to jump, but someone stabs Papagallo from behind and his car stops. Captain is fighting from above until his helicopter is shot down. The fighting doesn't stop, and Max turns the truck around to head back, but they're still with him. The boy gets Max the last bullet, and as he gets grabbed, they crash into Humongous and get taken off the road. But Max and the boy survived, and when Max checked the load, it was just sand and not fuel. The captain is also alive, and so is the rest of the group. In the end, they all head north together to get to their promised land, leaving Max behind in the waste. Thanks for watching our movie recaps. We've got something special for film fans, a curated selection of top-tier gear for an ultimate home movie experience. Click the link in the description to browse our selections on our website.